said you're not writing as much now, but do you have plans to write another poetry book or do a different kind of writing and make a book in the future?
Yeah, I need more work. Like, this is a lot of stuff. I definitely have more, but I need to figure out what direction I want the next one to go. Um, and there's so many options, and I'm not in the planning phase yet. I just need to start writing, and it'll come to me as it happens. But I can't decide, like, if I want to do a series of books so they all go together, if I want them to be completely different from each other. This one is a compilation of just, like, every place that I've come from and my growth as a person. And so it's more of an introduction. My next ones are going to be bigger and fuller and more artistic and more, hopefully, more mine. So I really have no idea. I don't have a plan.
Is there any kind of process that you take, like knowing once you know, okay, I'm starting a book? I know a lot of these are things that you already had and things. Is there a specific process that you use when you're creating your books, or?
Yeah, actually. So my writing process is a little bit different than like my process for the book. When I was writing this one, I way back last summer I started in like with a Google Doc and I just categorized them. I wasn't super good about it, but like I thought about what I wanted my book to feel like because I had an idea for the title for the last like 2 years. Like I've been thinking about this title for a long time. Um, and I categorized them based on like what structure I wanted the book to have at the time. So I would do like love poems or like sad poems or like I want to die poems or like whatever, whatever I wanted to include. And then as I found the opportunity, this one specifically, I could only put 21 poems in it. And so I wanted to pick poems that were full and did a really good job representing who I am and were also the best ones, because 21 is not a lot. It's pretty short. And what I did then is I went through all of my work and all of my favorite ones and made a list, and then took colored note cards and color coordinated the categories. And then I wrote the title and the first line from the poem and the themes that are in the poem and like keywords or whatever. And then I strung them up on the back of my bedroom door and moved them around and tried to find the order that it made sense in. So it's like a puzzle. And that was a surprisingly emotional process for me, but it was really helpful. I needed to see it visually and like physically move them around.
So the poems that you didn't end up using for this book, do you think you'll use them in future books, or will you just keep them for yourself?
I have no idea. I love sharing all of my work with everyone. I think I'm at a place where I'm kind of starting over. Like all of my other poems are associated with this chapter, and then I wrote the book, and now I'm done with that chapter, and I'm kind of starting over and experimenting with different forms and different topics, and I'm also a different person than I was when I wrote half of that book. So I don't think a lot of the old ones will get used, but who knows? I mean, everything is going to need to be revised anyway. A lot of times I go back and I read a poem and I like steal a line from my own poem and put it in a new one, or I don't know, rework it somehow.
And are your poems, is this book in particular, for a specific audience, for a specific group? Did you have anyone in mind, or just to share?
I think the people who need it will find it. That's generally what I like to believe about poetry books. When I go shopping for more poetry books to read, like there's everybody says don't judge a book by its cover, but like the cover draws you in for sure. And so when I'm looking in Barnes and Noble for a new book that day, I feel drawn to a certain one and I sit there and I read a few in the store and I think about who the author is and their positionality, and I think that people will do that with mine too. Mine isn't like in a store, so it's a little bit complicated because it's online. So mostly the audience is people who already know me because I'm not super established yet. But I generally think that the people who want it will know that they want it and they'll buy it. And that's kind of a vague, annoying answer, but like, I don't know, that's just kind of how it works, I guess.
What would you say to anyone that enjoys writing, is writing for themselves, maybe wants to write a book someday? Is there any advice you have for them?
Yeah, just do it. There's a lot of defiance in being a poet specifically that it is really hard to understand if you're not one. And with writing in general, at least in my experience, there's a lot of fear about what you're allowed to say and what you're not allowed to say. And if you want to be a poet, just write whatever comes to mind. And it doesn't have to be good to be art. Not everybody is going to like it. People are not going to care. I have so many friends who absolutely hate poetry, but they love me. And they bought the book and they were like, wow, this is amazing. Good for you. And if you're doing it for yourself, then ignore the rules, break the rules, like learn as much as you can. Like if people want to, then just do it. And at the end of the day, you can just burn it if you hate it.
I have one more that
Sure.
I forgot to ask you. What were the biggest challenges in writing this book?
I mean, the biggest challenge for me personally is the fact that most of that book was written during really terrible moments in my life or really intense moments in my life. Half the book was written mid-anxiety attack. So I think looking at the bigger picture was difficult because when I'm in a space where mentally not doing good and I am feeling so much, poetry is my outlet, but it was also a coping mechanism for a really long time. And I'm moving away from that and like learning about it as an art and a technique and a skill rather than something I need to survive, which is a really strange place to be in. I would say that the hardest part is just existing as a person and having things to write about. My life has been so full and I have so many stories, good and bad and strange and weird, and this book is a really interesting like conglomeration of all of those feelings that were real things that I actually did feel. And a lot of them, like the ones that are really messy were a thought spiral, and the ones that are really sad were me falling out of love, and the ones that are really hopeless are exactly that. There's a lot of happy ones in there too, but the hardest part was actually like having something to write about and like feeling the things that I needed to feel in order to put it onto the page.
And so you said a lot of them were traumatic and sad. How did that feel like looking back through the book after it was completed and revisiting those memories?
I feel like I'm looking at a version of my younger self. Like the book is dedicated to my younger self, and so when I read back at some of those, like I was just in a very different place than I am now, and it's really surreal and very strange, but I feel like I'm looking at a different person that I genuinely care about. And I'm like, if 18-year-old me came up to me and like had the thought spiral that she was having at those points in time, I would like give her a hug, you know what I mean? So the book means a lot to me in that way, not because I feel all of those things still. There are definitely a lot of them, but I don't know, it's really meaningful and really kind of strange, and it's so new that I still don't even fully know how it feels.